Good morning, my friends, and welcome at my YouTube channel. This is Marta here, and I am back to you with another video tutorial. As I said on a previous video, I won't be able to show you both the card and the poinsettia flowers because the video would be too long. So now I'm just gonna do a separate video to show you how I made those beautiful flowers. Because I already have a bunch of the red ones, I've decided to switch a color. I'm just gonna do everything exactly as I did for this red poinsettia. It's gonna be in a blue color scheme. I've prepared myself a couple of things, including blue corn acrylic ink, some embossing pad and clear embossing powder, a couple of my handmade sprays, and this is the little beds for flower centers. You can use either stamens or those styrofoam balls. I will give you a link to those ones where I bought them on my blog. So let's start. I've got a couple of white pieces of scrap paper. This is a good idea to actually use your scraps to make some flower leaves or other little embellishment. So I'm taking my stamping tool and I'm positioning the poinsettia flower stamp, and now I will be stamping it using the archival ink. But because I will be heat emboss it, then I'm just gonna use some extra baby powder before I start stamping. This is just a thing to do to remove any static, so the clear embossing powder will stick to the place I want to. You could actually skip this step because using a clear embossing powder, it's not necessarily gonna affect your stamping. However, if you would use a colorful embossing powder, then I would definitely recommend to use some sort of embossing body or as I'm using here, just a simple baby powder. Just put a little layer on the top of the cardstock before you stamp it. So once I stamp my image, I am heating it just to make sure it dries completely, and then I am putting additional layer of the embossing pad instead of the ink, just to rise this emboss area a little bit. I'm doing so because the archival ink I have, it's quite old and it's already dry. Besides, the archival inks tend to be quick drying inks, so they're not really the greatest one for this technique, like sprinkle clear embossing powder on top of that. You would rather want to use some juicy pigment ink. They tend to dry a wee bit longer, so the amount of the clear embossing powder sticking to it, it's actually much better than with archival ink. The only one reason why I'm using archival ink here rather than the other inks is just this is the shade I want to use, and I don't have the huge collection of the ink pads, so I'm just working with what I have. Now, after stamping it 3 times, 2 rounds, first archival ink and then clean embossing pad, I've decided it's just taking too long, so I switched to stamping only with the colorful embossing powder. I do have this lovely blue embossing powder from a Ranger, so this is what you seeing me here doing now. It's a wee bit lighter, but it still looks nice. So the reason why I want to use embossing powder is that I love this raised finish. Once you cut the stamping image, it's just looks beautifully once you use it embossing instead of just stamping on its own. So I prepare myself 3 pieces of each color, 2 made with archival ink, 2 made with colorful embossing powder, and now I will start my spraying process. This is my homemade spray shop for my embellishment. First of all, I am taking a piece of scrap paper and I'm testing whether any of my bottles is clogged or something, because I don't want to have those big blobs of a dark color. So I rather prefer to test it. I'm having this little bottle with acrylic spray. This is a spray I bought in a little store. They were very inexpensive, but they're highly pigmented and it's too dark for my taste. So what I've decided to do, I have this mini spritzer bottle which is filled with water and the perfect pearls to give it a little bit shine. And now I'm just gonna add 2 drops of this dark blue color acrylic spray mixture, and once it's all mixed up, it's gonna be much lighter. And I'm just testing whether I'm happy. Yeah, it looks lovely. I am very, very happy with it. So I'm just gonna start spraying my images. I love this technique. Well, you can use other things, like you can color your images with watercolor paint or use some distress inks or any other medium. I just prefer spraying because it's quick and just easy. You know, you can do a large batch in a quick time. So I'm just spraying it and I'm just gonna leave it for a few minutes to dry, and once it will be dry I will cut it out using my scissors. I also want to share with you a little bit of a personal story. What happened to us lately is that some of you may know I am planning to move back to Poland next year, and me and my husband were getting everything organized for our house to be built in Poland. And recently we received a very sad news. Unfortunately, the building constructor who were supposed to build our house, due to some personal reasons, he had to back down. So we stay without the contractor for building our house. But you know what? We keep this faith in our heart that no matter what, things will sort it out. And we were so lucky that we managed to find someone else. And that gets me into thinking is that if you will keep your faith, if you will keep, this belief that things will come your way, they will eventually do. And it's so important to not lose, your good spirit, because if you keep thinking, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world, this is the end, why is it always happening to me? The only one thing you will achieve from this sort of thinking would be attracting even more negative things to your life. So we always trying to look on the bright side, and I must to tell you this works perfectly. Even like another thing, a couple of years ago, before we bought this house here in Scotland, we were renting a flat from a lovely couple, and we had a very good neighbors surrounding our house because it was like 4 in the block. And the flat above us, it was a council flat. So the couple who was living there, they moved out, and the next family who moved there, oh my gosh, this was disaster. It was a constant arguing, partying, and it was just unbelievable. And at first I was quite upset that why is it happened to me, but then I just thought like, okay, it is what it is, and I'm gonna believe it's gonna sort somehow. And then me and my husband, we were start looking for another place to rent, but unfortunately we couldn't find anything in the market in our price we could afford, and it was just nothing. So then another thought came to our mind, is just why not buy a house? We didn't have a lot, but we do had a little bit of a saving, which was right enough for a deposit. And we found this perfect house we are living in on, and thanks to that noisy family, I would never decide to go for a mortgage. It was just something I was never thinking about before. And yeah, so sometimes when you get some obstacles in your life, you just have to think like what good can happen from it. And if I think about this situation now, I was very upset back then, but thanks to this noisy family, we bought a house. We've been paying the mortgage for a few years now, and thanks to that we managed to raise money which will serve us to build our house in Poland once we sell this house over here. And it's just everything came together beautifully, when at the first it was looking like, oh, it's something bad. And I think this was the precious lesson we took, which helped us to keep our positive mindset. And thanks to that, we actually managed to, rather than sit down and complain about the life, we managed to sort everything out together. Now, going back to my card, I cut out 3 pieces for each flower. I'm using 3 pieces of a stamp image. One of them I cut entirely, and 2 other one I just cut selectively, cutting off some of the leaves, flower petals I mean. And now I am using a little bit of a foam pad, this is just a regular mouse pad, and I am using a little flower shaping tool, just to give the flower a nice dimension. The bottom piece, which was entirely cut, I just make a little bit incisions just to help the shape flower a little bit better. And now I am just using my glue gun just to glue everything together. And once it's ready, I'm just gonna add a couple of those styrofoam balls in the middle just to accent the flower center. And that's it. This is my flower ready. This is how I made majority of my flowers, using just a flat stamps. I'm just stamping them, cutting them out and shaping them a little bit. And because this is the end of my video, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who watched it. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you did find some value in it. And if you have any comments or you have some tips you would like to share with me, please leave me a comment below. Thank you so much for being here for me, and I hope to see you here next time. Have a lovely day, Marta.